Water is also important in preventing obesity, both in children and adults. And I mean just plain old water, not watered down juice, not soda. All right, welcome back to part 2 and the final,
Yes.
we really mean the final part this time
yes.
of our childhood immunity party.
Boosting
party.
This time we are talking about lifestyle. So we continuing
our discussion on lifestyle changes.
Yeah,
so let's
all right.
get
Let's start. All right.
Exercise. Joy's favorite subject. Exercise, as it is for adults, is also important for kids' general health, but surprisingly is also important for immune health too, for your immune system. So where do you get your kids get their exercise? So of course, if they're playing sports, they're getting their exercise that way, but also just playing, just free play, just running, jumping, walking is good enough to count as cardiovascular exercise, because your heart is pumping and your body is moving. How much is recommended? 60 minutes per day for children is recommended. So that's more than adults. They need it. Their bodies crave it. And you run around and say your kids are hyper, it's because their bodies know that they need to move and groove. How does this work? It's kind of similar to how iron and B12 help with the immune system. Exercise physically makes the blood move to different parts of the body. So oxygen gets to different parts of the body. Aerobic means oxygen requiring. So aerobic exercise is good for your entire body. Many studies, and I'm sure you know this too, show that kids that move more, that are either in sports or just play more or have outdoor activities more, go hiking more, et cetera, they generally recover faster from illness and get less illnesses. And that's absolutely proven in scientific literature. How do you get your kids to exercise more if they're not in sporting teams or whatever? Just make it fun, set a good example, make it a family activity, play games, opt outside, plan outdoor, because generally when you're outside, you're generally going to be exercising more. You're not confined to a space. Play dates with other kids, because as we'll mention soon, outdoors, as we'll mention soon, the social interaction of exercise is also important. Speaking of social interaction, another very important component of a healthy immune system is reduced stress and and a good mental state, essentially. So where should we focus on stress reduction in kids? Everywhere, really. So stress at home, stress at school, stress with peers, exposure of kids to social media and news media and that sort of thing also unfortunately increases their stress too. This was another thing that came to light during the COVID pandemic, was just how much children were affected by the social isolation, which was unfortunately necessary, and just all the stress of seeing people dying and the pandemic and the worry of getting sick, et cetera, et cetera. So why is reducing stress important? In many aspects of health, but for our purposes today, reduced stress means reduced cortisol, which is a hormone that essentially promotes inflammation. Here we are talking about inflammation again. So less cortisol means less inflammation, and your body is able, instead of focusing on dealing with that inflammation, it can focus on protecting the body from outside sources of inflammation like viruses and bacteria.
A study.
Sweden,
2016, I believe. I forget the name of the PI, Maria something. She did a study on looking at stress levels and autoimmune disorders. These are diseases that basically, I think you did mention what autoimmune diseases are. Like basically
your body attacking itself.
Your body attacking itself. And she noticed a strong correlation between. Now, I have to caution you that this is not a cause and effect thing, but it was a correlational thing, where she showed that the higher the stress level, the more chances of getting any of these autoimmune diseases like juvenile arthritis, SLE, which is systemic lupus erythematosus, and one more,
Diabetes,
irritable
type 1 diabetes,
type 1 diabetes and IBS.
IBS or
So IBD,
IBD,
sorry, I always do that. IBD, sorry, IBD,
inflammatory
bowel
bowel disease,
disease.
Crohn's ulcerative colitis.
Crohn, yeah. So these autoimmune disorders, she just found a strong correlation between the incidence of this and the stress level in the kid as they developed the disease. So just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, and just a side note, signs of stress in a kid may not be as obvious as in adults. It doesn't necessarily, I mean, in some kids it can be more obvious, like they're crying more, they're obviously anxious or not sleeping well, but it can also manifest in poor grades, isolating themselves from their friends or from peers, disinterest, uh, boredom. So, I mean, this is definitely something to speak to your pediatrician about, because sometimes the pediatrician can recognize it even when you're seeing your children every day. Sometimes it takes an outside person to notice that. So just be aware that stress and depression, anxiety in kids is not as obvious as in adults sometimes. How do you reduce stress? So just making sure uh, you're, again, promoting a good example yourself. So exercise, good sleep, social interaction, um,
Don't sweat
art,
the small.
music.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, which is easier said than done in kids, but you can promote, you can set a good example
You said
yourself.
example, so that's
Yes.
why I said.
Um, Going outside, just getting vitamin D from the sun and fresh air in general is enough to reduce stress levels in children and in adults. Some kids that are more prone to stress and anxiety will benefit from journaling, meaning keeping a diary about things, getting their thoughts down into paper, from meditation, from doing therapeutic art, music, that sort of thing. So just keeping that in mind. Okay, and then finally, the last aspect of a good immune system that we want to talk about today, that's important for kids' health in general, is preventing and reducing obesity. Unfortunately, obesity is a global pandemic in adults and is starting to become one in children as well. So just be aware of that and be mindful of that. Be mindful of what your children are eating, how much they're eating, and when they're eating. These are kind of the three aspects of food, without getting in, there's a fine balance between monitoring your child's diet and over monitoring your child's diet, but that's a topic for another day. So, what, when, and how much, and then also that's food. Also water. I think maybe I haven't talked enough about water throughout this whole thing. Water is very, very important when you talk about fiber and just keeping the body clean and ready to fight off infection. But water is also important in preventing obesity, both in children and adults. And I mean just plain old water, not watered down juice, not soda or anything like that. Please.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's okay.
So the study was not this was a what we call a review article. It's not as strong, but in University of Leeds, what they did was they compiled data from all over the world, mostly the Western world, for 26 years of data from 1990 to 2016. And they compiled the data for children that were drinking sodas, and that eventually some of them moved to drinking water. And the way they accomplished it was by doing cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which of course you can explain in greater detail, but they did some amount of therapy and moved them to drinking water, and there was a statistically significant drop in their weight and their obesity level. It's, again, like I said, it's not a very strong study because it was not. It was a retrospective, looking at the data kind of a study, but I thought that there was some power to it. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I think one thing we say as pediatricians a lot is don't let your kids drink their calories. Most sugary drinks are empty In fact, essentially all sugary drinks are empty calories. They're not really getting any benefit from it. As we've mentioned time and time again, we'd rather you eat the actual fruit than a fruit juice. So really just water, to be honest, with occasional treat of a little bit of soda or a little bit of juice, even juice. So don't try not to think of juice as a healthy drink. You really just water. So that's enough about water. But obesity, for the purposes of this talk, has actually been directly, even in kids and adults too, but also in kids, really related to an increased risk for viruses, particularly the influenza virus or the flu virus and other respiratory infections, but particularly flu. There's studies that actually show as your BMI or body mass index goes up, the risk of influenza goes up. So that's, and you may remember hearing that patients or that people with a higher BMI did worse with COVID too. So the same thing can be said about, unfortunately, kids with a higher BMI as well. So that's a big reason to keep their bodies healthy. Ajoy already mentioned the whole sugar thing. So sugary sodas are not, are associated with obesity, but sugar in general directly inhibits the absorption of vitamin C. So if you're drinking or eating a lot of sugar, then there's less vitamin C in your body and less vitamin C to stimulate your immune system. So that's also something to think about when you're talking about sugar in kids. Also, finally, other studies looking at obese children also looked at markers of inflammation in their blood. So things like C-reactive protein, et cetera. They looked at those markers and they actually found that just like adults, chronic inflammation, meaning chronically elevated markers in the blood, was associated with higher risk for infection and lower. They analyzed their immune system components and found that they had less active and less number of immune system components than kids with a healthy BMI because of this chronic inflammation. So as we've said time and time again, inflammation is bad. Chronic inflammation is bad in adults and in kids. Yeah. So what can you do to prevent obesity? I guess this is a good wrap up to kind of what we've been talking about. Number one is eat more plants. Doesn't have to be all plants. Ideally, it would be all plants in a perfect world, but just eat more of them. If you are not already vegetarian, have one meal, one day a week that is meatless Monday or whey-less Wednesday or fish-free Friday.
By whey, you mean all dairy products?
Whey, yes, so go try just one day a week, and if your kids are doing it, the whole family should be doing it. Do it as a family. It's good for everyone.
And see the benefits.
So because if you're eating more plants, you're eating more fiber, you're eating more plant-based protein, and your immune system is better in the long run.
And the thing is, when you do that, you might have these issues, because we've heard this quite often from our patients, right? Oh, my hair is shedding more, I have more joint pain. And so that's the time when you need to talk to a qualified physician, or come to us, and we can tell you exactly why is this happening and how to alleviate these conditions, because we don't see that in us and we don't see it in our patients. So we'd be more than happy to help you with that.
Yeah, and always before again changing anything, always talk to your doctor. But
he or she might be able to tell you exactly what to do.
In relation to your particular child, can kind of give you anticipatory guidance about what to expect and how things will change and hopefully level out for your kids. So always involve your children with any lifestyle change. So just like with exercise and sleep and water intake, etc. When you're changing to a more plant-based diet, allow them to help you pick out what you're going to make for the week. Let them plan the menu. Let them come to the grocery store with you or order online with you, and they're more likely to be excited about what you're going to cook and help you cook and that sort of thing. And then finally, time and time again, we say don't be afraid to let them try new things, because kids' palates are more advanced than you think they are. So that comes full circle with just what we've talked about over the last 3 parts of our kids' immunity extravaganza. Part 1 is specific foods that will help boost your child's immune system. Part 2, we talked about in those foods the specific vitamins and minerals, and if needed, supplements, although we prefer the food itself, that can help boost the immune system chronically and then also in times of illness, how you can help your child. And then finally, we just in this segment talked about other than food and supplements, other outside of the body things that can help your child. Good restorative sleep and enough of it, enough water, enough exercise, a good mindset, meaning less stress and anxiety, and then a good body weight, a healthy body that's ready to fight off any attackers as they come in. All right, so now that we have finally come to this conclusion after many hours of bothering with us, we hope that you enjoyed and have become at least somewhat enlightened by the last hours of information that we've thrown at you. At least you've absorbed some of it. You can always go back and listen to this or watch this again if the desire strikes you.
Get to sleep.
If you can't sleep at night, we talked about how important sleep is, but maybe our videos will help, or our podcast will help you get to sleep. That's one way to do it. As always, if you have suggestions on future topics, please let us know. Or if you have questions, please let us know. Or if you have constructive criticism, please let us know. We are happy.
For the podcast, I have to say that you just go to our website, circeehealth.com/podcast, and wait for like 30 seconds, I believe, and instantly a pop-up will come up. Just a simple thing in the bottom right corner saying, do you have any suggestions? Just type in the suggestions, hit submit, and that's it. It literally will not cost you more than 5 or 10 seconds of your time.
And please review us on all
that's
the
other
podcast
thing. We feel lonely.
Platforms.
Nobody seems to be reviewing
Show us some love.
Yeah. So nobody seems to be reviewing us. Either we are terrible or we are too good. I think it's
questionable.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.
Be well.
All right. Bye.
Ciao.